If you're familiar with the show South Park, then you will know that they are no stranger to controversy. They've talked about everything from sexual orientation, to the Middle East, to terrorism, to every president that you can imagine. South Park talks about absolutely everything, and they have no fear in attacking absolutely anyone from around the world. And speaking of having no fear, they just released a very controversial video featuring none other than Donald Trump. It has him in bed with Satan himself, it has a deep fake with him running through the desert, it does not depict him in a favorable light. And to see Matt and Trey taking this kind of risk as an intentional means of getting exposure on the topic warms the heart of any South Park fan from around the world, because you know they are going in for the kill, and this is a very intentional, very direct attack on the most powerful man in the country. But what might surprise you is how tone-deaf the White House's response to this situation actually is. Because within one day of this video being dropped on YouTube, the White House responded, and they responded by saying this show hasn't been relevant for over 20 years and is hanging on by a thread with uninspired ideas in a desperate attempt for attention. President Trump has delivered on more promises in just 6 months than any other president in our country's history, and no fourth-rate show can derail President Trump's hot streak. Good Lord, this might be the most tone-deaf take I have ever seen. Firstly, and there's a few points that I'm going to make here, to say South Park is hanging on by a thread is absolutely insane, because they just got acquired by Paramount. And guess how much they got acquired by? Try $1.5 billion. That's a that's a B, not an M there. This might be more than Trump's entire net worth by some accounts. But regardless of whether or not this is more than Trump's net worth, to be attained by any streaming service by more than $1 billion is a huge deal. This is not something that happens every day. Alright, moving on to point number 2 here. This last sentence here is just riddled with projection and insecurity. They say that, and no fourth-rate show can derail the President Trump's hot streak. I don't mean to point too many fingers in this very inappropriate direction here, but to say that Trump is on a quote-unquote hot streak is pretty weird. Recently, Trump has been very much associated with the heinous, terrible crimes of none other than Jeffrey Epstein, and there is mounting pressure from both sides to release the Epstein files. However, he has refused to do so, and that has caused many people on both sides to dislike him even more. It seems like no matter what the situation is, there's so many talking heads representing Trump that just say that he's perfect, that just say that he's the best, that just say that he is, no matter what, the best in the world at everything, and it's just weird. And moving on to my third point here, they talk about how South Park is hanging on by a thread with quote-unquote uninspired ideas. If you know anything about South Park, you know that their ideas are certainly inspired. Matt and Trey have a crazy history of building unbelievable storylines that are not only creative, but are timeless. They are worth remembering in extraordinary ways. This is just such a sad, tone-deaf take from the White House, and I am very aware that South Park here did this as an intentional attack on the president. This was somewhat of a troll, you could add, but it was a very calculated troll. It got massive attention from both sides. There are so many people talking about this, and I just found it amazing. I found it remarkable because Matt and Trey are back in the biggest kind of way, and they just know how to stir up the perfect kind of controversy at the perfect time. So shout out to South Park, best of luck on the new season, and as always, thanks for watching The Plaid Apple.